AudioLab, devlog number 8. I'm still calling it that, and it's still mostly accurate. I'm going to have a much more focused log here than the big sprawling mess I had last time. So, in this program, I pretty much focused on 3 things over the last 3 weeks, and each one took about a week each. Let's talk about those 3. So you might have already seen some new stuff here. We'll get to it. First thing I did was I added a convert button to my sfxr screen here. So if I click this, if I play this, sounds like that. If I click the convert button and play, I get the AudioLab synth equivalent of what was there in the sfxr parameters. You know, I can change this around, add a little bit of whatever. So now it sounds like that. Anyway, so there's a lot to talk about there, and it's better talked about after I show the other stuff I worked on. So that was number 1, and we'll come back to that. Thing number 2, I have now... Ooh, you're loud. I have now a new concept here. Let's see. In addition to the layered wave type that we've looked at before. So let's see, this is set to average. Yeah, we did this before. Just averaging those together. I can now go to modified, and this is kind of like layered, but a rather different concept. So this has replaced, you might notice the sine plus overtones wave sampler is no longer in here. I've completely replaced that with a separate mechanism which can operate on the wave shape before it goes through the rest of the processing steps. So if I wanted to recreate the wave sampler overtones thingy, I'd put, let's say, a harmonics modifier on here, and this defaults to what that thing had. And then also a distortion one. Sure. Anyway, yeah, so I have several different, let's just go through these one by one. So here, sine wave with distortion. Yeah, I can see pretty clearly what that does. Just amplify it, clip it, whatever you want to do. As with all my other stuff, I have mute and solo boxes on this. I have a blend slider, so I can do partial or full or whatever. Harmonics works about like you'd expect. And this gets fun when I change the underlying wave type. So that's harmonic sawtooth. I guess this will be more obvious if... it seems like you're like really loud. So we can do it this way. So just sawtooth with harmonics, different spacing, this fun thing. Anyway, yeah, so I can do that with any wave type now instead of just a sine wave with this weird hard-coded thing I was doing before. Triangle. Ooh, that one doesn't work. Okay, we'll look at that a little bit more later. Okay, so we got a problem with spike. Did I break my... Okay, yeah, so spike, here, I'll just show it now. It's this minor little thing. It's a new wave type that just once every period just has one sample up and then the rest are down. I had some reason for making this. I don't know, it's not really all that interesting on its own. But it's a thing. Apparently it doesn't work with harmonics. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. Oh, geez, what am I doing? Harmonics. White noise. Yeah, okay, so getting this working was interesting. So it is meaningful to do that with white noise. Is it just me or is this like super loud? It just seems really, really loud every time I do it. Maybe I just turned up my speakers too much when I'm sitting in front of this computer. Here, let's listen to what this is like. Well, it's like something. Anyway, in order for this to work, I had this fun little thing I needed to do where previously the way my white and pink noise samplers worked was that they would just keep track of how many samples they had output, and after a certain number, crossing the threshold, which the threshold being based on what the input frequency is, would just generate a new random number, and that would be the next sample for the next n outputs until it changed again. Problem with doing that is for harmonics, this let's see, do I want to talk about how this works on the inside? It's a little complicated, but basically what this does is it, I guess it'll be easier to see with a non-noise sampler. So yeah, sawtooth is real obvious. Here, let's just turn that off for now. Let's just look at the shapes. So if I set count to exactly 1, okay, how do I even... Wait, if fall off is 1, yeah, okay, so it just combines like a sawtooth wave, if fall off is 1 at full amplitude with 1 at half the amplitude, then half of that, then half of that. So basically the harmonics modifier invokes the wave sampler multiple times per sample that it outputs. It took me a while to just figure out like what it meant to get this chain of modifiers here. And yeah, they can modify each other. Oh geez, I'm so disorganized. Sorry, I'm trying. Anyway, so doing that with a noise sampler meant that I couldn't like go forward and back in time and get the same numbers output because it was just using a non-indexable random function. So I figured out what I needed to do for that. I replaced this with a hash algorithm. So it just takes the seed value that's input and hashes that with the index of the sample that I want to output. And then that means that this can go forward and back in time. So if I say I want... if I want to get a sample at the equivalent of what this time is, even if I've gone off and done other samples, it doesn't have to like generate a new one and probably get a different random number than this. It can just look here and hash those together and always get the same answer. So that was a fun little technical thing. And, you know, it sounds the same. It still sounds like random static because I have a pretty good hashing algorithm on the inside. Anyway, so let's go back to sawtooth. Right, so yeah, harmonics, we've looked at this plenty. I've explained how it works enough. Distortion, we've looked at that plenty. There's not much to say about it. It's pretty simple. Reset. This one was fun. Let's do this with a sine wave. No, let's do it with a sawtooth. It actually makes more sense for a sawtooth. This was the result of me reading an article about somebody who had worked on synthesizing a piano sound, and somewhere in there, their process involved some kind of waveform that reset itself at like 80% or something. And I thought, hey, that's interesting. Let's see what that sounds like. What does it sound like? Here's a sawtooth. Why is your frequency weird? Go back to normal. Okay, so here's a sawtooth. Here's a sawtooth, this reset point here. Maybe it's more obvious if we do it this way. So as long as there's like a little bit of activity right here at the edge, I can still hear the bass frequency no matter how many spikes come up. But if I'm at like an even multiple, so like if this ends, then it's here. Like same frequency, same frequency, same frequency, kind of losing that frequency, and go right here, and if it's at a perfect multiple, it's double the frequency. And then it's triple, then quadruple. Anyway, a cool, fun little toy, which is what most of this program is. I'm trying to make it a serious tool, but a lot of it is just toys. Super sample. This one won't be very audibly obvious. Yeah, like if I turn that on, you can hear a tiny bit more buzz with it off. sfxr, as it happens, just always super samples by 8. So I added this in just for my conversion so it could sound a bit more authentic. Anyway, so that's what that one is. And then chord. This one, again, was just because I felt like playing with it. This has a... Were my clicks getting eaten or was I just missing? I think I was just missing. I had a thing where like things weren't quite in the right priority, but I don't think I have that thing going right now. Anyway, so this is UI similar to the stair-step frequency curve where I can... so yeah, A4 is the base note for everything, but if I would like add another one, then there are 2 A4s being played at a time. Here's an A4 and a C4. Let's add another. And here's one with that. So anyway, it's a chord. Pretty simple. I can change the amplitude of each one. The UI is pretty bad. There are lots of UI tweaks I want to make here. That's pretty cool as it is. Oh boy, I'm not very organized today. I've been working on this really hard. Spent a lot of time in it, more than I usually do. Okay, so those are wave modifiers, and yeah, those are going to be real handy for all sorts of stuff. It was a very important feature that I've needed for a long time now. Then week 3 was mostly spent on this other thing that I also thought was very important. What's the best way to demonstrate this? Let's do a very loud pulse wave. Let's do a less loud pulse wave. So I talked about for a while where I can change the duty here, and we know what that sounds like. But I wanted a way to vary that over time, and I wanted not only a way to vary that over time, but a way to vary basically every parameter that's an input to this synthesizer. And I have that now. So here's what I can do. Let's add a vibrato just for fun. So there's a noise. I'm going to click this controllers button. Right, so there are 2 types right now. This UI, again, is a mess. I'm planning to clean it up. But let's add a ramp controller. And bind this to, let's say, first the waves duty. So duty is going to start at 0.5, which is this shape, and then end at 1. So you can hear the duty actually sweeping now. All right, I could do this if I wanted. Have it center at 0.5, go the other way around, which is actually the same thing because there's no audible difference. Let's turn off this vibrato thing for now, just so we can just hear the duty. And I can make the onset and endpoints different. I have this graph just showing like how this value will vary over its over the course of the sound. I can make it repeat itself. Let's see if I put this here and do like that. All sorts of fun stuff. Anyway, and I can also do a sine wave. These are just the only 2 I happen to have implemented so far. So, just centering around duty 0.5, going up once, going down once, or maybe more times if you want. And, that, but starting at a different phase if you want. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Ooh, that's right. If duty goes out of range, then the sound just doesn't really play. And, if I wanted to, instead of binding to duty, I could bind to, let's say, frequencies. Well, sure, frequency's frequency. I could. So frequency goes up and down. Or I could bind it to, say, the vibrato speed. Let's actually make that do something. Okay, what is this mess? Why is this center value should be... okay, I see why this is, because it remapped the equivalent of where this slider was positioned for the full range of what this can be. All right, window, you can't quite get all the way out of the way because you're bound to there. I need to come up with a better way to handle these. This is not a real window. This is just a... I mean, you can tell by the textual close button there. Yeah, I should be able to put those at least a little bit out of bounds, maybe, because I can't get this all the way out of the way of those parameters as it is. Anyway, yeah, so speed is 4. Let's make that let's go back to a ramp here. Start value is 4, end value is 4 for now. So I can have a vibrato that speeds up a little bit over time. And that's fun. Or it doesn't speed up for a little bit. Or speeds up and then stops speeding up. That one's not as easy to tell what's going on. Or what does it sound like if this is a sine wave? Doesn't really make a lot of... Oh, what are these numbers? Okay, those are not the right numbers. Okay, that's just confusing. Got like two sine waves interfering with each other. I don't even know what this is doing. Something weird. But anyway, yeah, so I can just bind this to any property, any non-length related property, because it doesn't make sense to vary the length over the length of the synthesized sound. Let's change this to a ramp. For this amplitude envelope, it doesn't make much sense. Let's change it to, this window won't update immediately when I do this. I have some stuff to work out. Ooh, that's an unpleasant sound. Let's change that to the, wait. Oh, okay, this hasn't repopulated its, oh boy. The values I want it to. Let's change this to the, yeah, okay, that's fun. So increasing the rest time on the pulse here. Let's make the max amplitude less, because pulse waves are really loud. Sustain a little higher. Rest can start here. Let's just change this back to flat. Sure. And you know, if these were the same value, it'd just sound like that. Yeah, so this is a very powerful mechanism. I can definitely imagine in the future adding lots of different shapes here, like maybe a curved ramp, like the frequency ramp that I have here. All sorts of different stuff. Anyway, yeah, so just getting the basic concept working took a lot of time. So one of the main motivators for this was to be able to convert over all of my old sfxr and bfxr sounds that are used in Foresight Fight and other game projects that I have. And I just needed these features to be here in order for that to be possible. So basically, the last little bit of work that I did on this just today was to try to get as much feature parity with sfxr as I could. So let's go to a directory full of sounds from this old game called Convergence, because this is where I was using sfxr, and it has fewer features, so it was easier to get here. So, boss sword, convert. It sounds a little bit different because this involves white noise, but if I want to try and make it sound more similar to that, you know, it gets the amplitude envelope, gets the frequency curve, gets all the, well, there's not much else going on here. That's basically what it is. But I can try different seeds here until I find one that randomly matches this, just because I can't match the exact random number generation algorithm used by sfxr here. And I think, yeah, note that if I mess with this a little bit, it basically reseeds every time. So even sfxr is not the same as sfxr. It varies. So yeah, you know, when working with noise, just mess with seeds after conversion to get one that's appealing. Is basically how this would go. Oh, I'm zoomed in. That's why that looked weird. Okay. So that one works. Dash. Convert. That one doesn't quite sound right. What's wrong with it? Ooh, what is wrong with this? Did I break something? I felt like this was working. Or is this just a random seed thing again? Seems like the amplitude envelope's doing something weird. Okay, so this has given me... Oh, is this a phaser thing? Wait a second, phaser. Right, I didn't talk about that. Couple of more little features I added here were that... is it a modifier? It's not a modifier. This would be a signal filter. Right, okay. Right, okay, that does make sense. Right, so I have a phaser filter now. Can't really tell what it's doing with a sine wave, but with a pulse wave, which is loud as ever. Anyway, it's a phaser. And that is used with... Does this use phasing? It does a little bit. But why this? Hold on, let's change this to sine. Let's disable the phaser? Disable the... Oh boy. Phaser for a moment. Okay, so it's all the phaser that's making it look quieter right in there. Yeah, see, like you can see that shape is right. But why this go down so much? I don't know, that's suspicious. Anyway, it's close. Okay, this one needs some more work. Somehow. I'm not sure what I need to do with it, but something. Oh, I have a suspicion. Yeah, I think I know which last minute change broke that. All right, that's fine. I can fix it. Door unlocked. Pretty convincing. You know, try a different random seed if you want a better result. Whoops. Duelist sword. Sounds good. A lot of white noise in here. Whoops, I keep clicking the convert button instead of the load button. There's that. This uses a spline wave shape because, funny story, the version of sfxr that I was using, which wasn't actually the official sfxr, it was a Mac port done by a friend of mine because I was developing everything on a Mac those days, and that one seemed nice. This one's triangle wave is this weird thing where it actually has a flat portion accidentally, but that makes kind of a nice sound here. Like if I switch to BFXer, that quirk goes away. A different quirk comes in though, and the triangle is like way down there. Never mind, I can't show that easily. Okay, let's do it this way then. So that sound is reproduced correctly. If I switch to triangle, you know, it's just a completely different sound. It doesn't have the harmonics of this shape. So yeah, just as a workaround for not having to implement this weird triangle as a base wave type, I just write it as spline data here. So draw out the triangle with this little bump in it. And that does the job. How do I... that's right, it's right click for some reason to switch spline points. Anyway, so that one works. That was enemy block, enemy death. Okay. Decent. You're zoomed in. Yeah, that's pretty convincing. All right, let's load up enemy sword. Works good. Got key. That one's real simple and easy. Hit. That sounds different, but that's just a random seed thing. Yeah, seed 4 is pretty close. Sure. All right, knife. I was just working with this one because it involves LPF ramp. Let's see, that does work now, right? Anyway, yeah, so, you know, you can see the parameters that this is setting. It's adding a high-pass, low-pass filter. I could not get this implementation of low-pass filter to work with a controller ramp on the cutoff. It's a fundamentally different thing the way it's implemented to move this slider, different from what it is to have this slider move itself in the internal algorithm. So as a compromise, I just have this as my, I'll probably like in the UI rename this to sfxr high-low pass, because it's a specialized thing that implements that algorithm. I'm going to have a different high-pass and low-pass filter that's not implemented with the way sfxr does it because it's weird. But I need that weirdness to reproduce the same sound, so it just uses that with its own ramp, which doesn't work with my automation. So, you know, there are several reasons why that doesn't work for general purpose. Because like if I'd add a controller and bind to sfxr high-low pass, LP cutoff, it does nothing. Doesn't change a thing. Because it just doesn't respond to that in the way that it would need to because of the way it's written. Anyway, but it works for this specific purpose. Level complete. Looks good. How about menu back? Sounds great. Menu okay. What the heck? Why does that sound wrong? That's not... What? That's menu okay? Ah, okay, that one's not... Wait. Okay, that's the result of, how is this? This is actually supposed to be, all right, this is complicated. Menu okay. This is supposed to be this triangle wave? No. I'm pretty sure this is an issue with the, sorry. The reason I'm pausing here is because this doesn't sound like it does in the game, but nobody who hasn't played the game would know that. This is an issue with the file I have on disk. Could I just like SVN update that and get it fixed? What did I call this? Assets, convergence. No, it didn't change. Do I have this fixed on my other computer? Because I think it works there. Hang on. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. I did indeed have fixed versions of those. Menu OK. Okay, so it's actually a noise sampler. Oh boy, that doesn't... Okay, there's a reason this one doesn't work well, and it's not the reason I thought. Far offset 0.5. Something's wrong with my phaser right now. Oh yeah, that phaser is not working right. Okay, that's why some of these sound off. Alright, so I broke that at the last second. This test isn't going quite as well as I was hoping it would. Alright, so got a problem there. The phaser is doing something wrong. Kind of have an idea of what that might be. Menu select, very short one. Reproduces perfectly. Pause. Sounds good. Right, try a different seed until you get a good one. Player death. This is kind of a complicated sound. I think this one has a few problems. Yeah, there's that weird like crunchy section in the middle that I actually have no idea why it happens. And when I zoom in on this, it looks like it's going way down in frequency before the reset, before it comes back. By the way, I had to add a feature to my ramp frequency curve to reset at a certain point, just for this. Ooh, that's fun to watch. Okay, how was that? Yeah, so something's going on here where it's not reproducing that like real low frequency thing right before the reset, and gets this like crunchy hissy noise in here that I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, yeah, so this is my process. Do that, see if I can figure out what's going on in the math and why the sound isn't being reproduced perfectly when it's not. Most of them are. Let me show, just for fun, the ridiculous math code for doing all this. So this would be in utilities, all the way down at the bottom. Yeah, so just because the number inputs to sfxr are so different from the way AudioLab's synthesizer does things, I have a lot of math and conversions here. So, you know, get the appropriate, so for whatever wave type, create the appropriate wave sampler with, you know, slightly different inputs for what the numbers mean. Here's the spline being constructed for that weird janky triangle, only if I'm including sfxr quirks. Pink noise. Here's a bunch of bfxr wave sampler types that I don't have implemented. So those are all to-dos. Right, so yeah, constructing the ADSR envelope. sfxr just has all this code in it with stuff that looks like that, so when you, to get the actual value for attack, it squares the slider value and then multiplies it by 100,000s? And then divides that by sample rate. Right, because most of sfxr operates in a time space that has nothing to do with the overall envelope length. My thing is the other way around. Like if I set up a let's do a reset here. So like if I set up a frequency ramp and then lengthen the So, you know, that takes that longer. Shorten this. It's still the same amount of travel in frequency between these 2 points. But sfxr's way of doing things is the other way around. Like if I set up a freak ramp here, a shorter sample will not travel the same amount. So it kind of just keeps traveling for as long as the sound keeps on going. So that was kind of the source of a lot of conversion difficulties. So I just had to move a lot of things between like relative time and absolute time for the bits of math to line up. So, you know, yeah, so here's the reset point, a lot of powers, logarithms, multiplications, divisions, all this mess for the, yeah, freak dramp was one of the hardest ones to get right because I think it's still not like 100% exactly how it would need to be. So let's set up one of these. Freak ramp. Convert. Oh yeah, and that one just kind of stops outputting when the frequency gets high enough. Mine just makes a big mess with the trying to synthesize things at way too high of frequencies. So that's a bit of a behavior change. I don't know where in the sfxr code it actually just stops that, though. Like, I feel like it should make a big mess over here like mine does, but somehow it doesn't. Anyway, so what I had to do for this, it might not follow exactly the same curve when converted over. I just had to calculate where the start point and end point were in each one and base my calculations on that with all this big mess of math. All these multiplications by weird numbers that sfxr does. Anyway, yeah, so big function, full of math, converting data between two different, you know, data sets that express the same thing in different ways is always a very hard problem in any kind of software. So yeah, this was that was what I had to do to get that to work at least as well as it does. It's not done yet, but it's kind of close. All right, where was I? I was at player hit, I think. Yes, I think so. That sounds right. Rank up. Sounds the same to me. It has a little click at the end, though. What was that? That doesn't center back to 0 at the end. I can hear that click as it stops. This one doesn't either, though. But I don't hear the click here. Those look like they're centered at the same... Maybe this one's a tiny bit down? Anyway, it's close enough. This doesn't have to be exact. It just has to be perceptually good enough. That was rank up. Player shoot. Close enough. You know, change the seed if you want it closer. Well, it might get closer if you try enough seeds. Find an acceptable one. Plunk. That's a little different. Does this involve... Okay, yeah, this one is because of the vibrato. Okay, so let's reset this. If I convert like that... You can hear it's a little different. Best I could figure out, it seems like the sfxr algorithm doesn't actually draw a sine wave shape for its vibrato implementation. The shape it draws is kind of like a sine wave on top, but then more truncated on the bottom, so I might need like this implemented with a different underlying shape in order to perfectly reproduce that. It's weird. That's one that I haven't fully solved yet. But yeah, that had just a little bit of vibrato on it. That's why this one sounds higher pitched, just because it sort of lands at a different place within that. So, you know, it's decent for, you know, for that purpose, it's fine. Ranger lock. Once again, seed 4 seems to be the closest of the low ones. That's probably coincidence, because isn't this just generating... That's not generating fresh every time? It's not. Okay, I have this seeded, but it doesn't like reset the seed when I mess with the parameters. So every time I load it, it's going to be the same. But if I mess with this... No, it's not. What? I don't know what's going on with this. Anyway, something. Non-deterministic random numbers. Shoot, sounds like that. Sounds like that. This one happens to go down instead of up. Doesn't really make a difference. It's the same thing. Oh, and this is an example of where freak limit actually makes a difference, because without this set... Whoa, an extra little bit there. Without setting freak limit, that would be the same length. So that's just used to sort of truncate a sound with a... an aggressive downward ramp on the frequency. I could implement this if I just added a way to truncate the amplitude envelope, because right now I can't have one like end in the middle of its release ramp and still do its thing, but that'd be easy to implement. So I think I can get that to full feature parity. Sneak! This was one that I really needed the LPF ramp for, because that's what the sound is made of. This one sounds real good because it's literally using the same algorithm on the inside for the high and low pass filter. So yeah, that one maps pretty well. Sword. Yeah, and just white noise and stuff. So yeah, working pretty well. Now, that's for convergence, which used sfxr. Foresight Fight is a little more complicated. That one used BFXer and some more features in there, so we can see like where we are with this. Is this a multi-track? No, it's not. Okay, so that's what that sounds like. That's different. Because of harmonics. Yeah, a lot of Foresight Fight sounds use harmonics here. I have harmonics and compression in the synthesizer here, but I haven't wired them up to my converter yet, so a lot of these will be wrong. How about this one? Ooh, no, no, no. Can I like manually put in harmonics and distortion and have that sound good? Let's try. That's just a sign, so copying, pasting means nothing. I'll do it anyway. Harmonics. How many octaves did you have? That was like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 4. Cast spell. 0.305. 1, 2, 3. It was 3. So 3 of these. I don't know what the fall off or spacing is. Let's assume it's somewhere around there. And also add a distortion, because the BFXer harmonics distorts very strongly. Wait, now I messed this one up. What happened? Oh, because I turned off the harmonics, of course. Oh, compression. That's the other thing that's going on here. Okay. So that's charge spell. No, cast spell. So I need to add compression on this. Is that a... That's a... one of these. Compression, strength like that. It's getting there. What do I need to do with this? I don't know. Anyway, so I'd have to do the math to get that all to work. Anyway, you get the picture. So I just want to go through all these until they all sound the same, and then I can completely throw away my old BFXer sounds and use this synthesizer for everything. So just to show that it's getting close, it works almost perfectly for one data set, and for the second data set, I just have to do the process again to do that. All right, that's probably way too long-winded on that, but you know, it's kind of fun. Anything else worth showing? No, that was pretty much it. So yeah, the near future of this is to try and finish conversion so that I can move on with using this in the games that started with sfxr and go forward with this. Which I could do now, but I want to keep my old work preserved and malleable for the future. So that's how I'm doing it. So yeah, I have a lot of little UI messes to clean up. I have this weird pop-up menu that's here. These are C and P buttons. These are C and P buttons, but like these are copy and paste buttons. They're in a different place. I have these windows don't work like super well. Here in the modifiers view, the copy and paste is up here, and I like this pattern a lot better. You choose which type of thing is over here alongside its parameters. And you can add and remove and reorder down here if you want. So yeah, I think this is the UI paradigm I'll be going with for the rest of these. I just haven't gotten around to updating them. And you know, this big pile of buttons that I have on every screen is just a mess. I'll figure out a better way to do that. I had this idea while I was working on there are just all these different layers and containers as part of the synth specification. Now, let me show you what one of these files looks like. Let's look at, okay, let's save this as a file and inspect what that is. So sound.stem audio here in, let's just put it in the AudioLab directory, which I think I have open here. You go away, you don't need to be here right now. Sound.stem audio. Here's all the data that goes into that. So it has a track, can have multiple potentially, tracks have names, offset blend, amplitude envelope, linear ADSR envelope has all those parameters, layered frequency curve. So then in here is a ramp with those parameters. Then there's also a vibrato with those parameters. Wave has modifiers applied, so you know, sine has no parameters, so it's real simple to express. But then there's the reset, there's the distortion here. Signal filters, there are several with their own parameters and everything. Then there's a property controller doing stuff, referencing, how does it do that? Object index. So signal filter at index 1, that's this one. So the phaser has a ramp on it that starts at -7 and goes to -0.7, apparently. Whatever that means. And anyway, so this is a bunch of data, and it's hard to keep track of in the UI here because there are all these little pop-up windows and things. Oh, so this is fun. Gonna press the reset button. I made a minor change, just basically enabling the layered and modified sampler types inside the layered and modified windows. So I can click Edit Layers here and have another window pop up under that. And you know, here's a sine wave, this one can be modified, I can edit modifiers. So this nests arbitrarily deep, and it all works, but like it's real hard to work with. Look how narrow this is compared to this. That's weird. Yeah, okay, that's the kind of UI inconsistency I need to address. So I think it would be real good to have imagine a hierarchical outline view, like what you'd see on an IDE, organizing all your files over taking up the left side of the screen, you know. At the root level, I'd have the amplitude envelope, the frequency curve, the wave shape, because those are kind of the big three main ones, and then a whole list of its, well, actually at the root would be the track list, but then each track would have one of those. Yeah, the hierarchy is super unclear here. It's not obvious that track contains everything else in here. You know, cut out this little hole in the UI and then everything is under that. Then, you know, controllers are at the track level, filters are at the track level, but then these are at the wave sampler level, and they can have their own hierarchies and everything. So yeah, just having a representation where I could see this in outline form. I guess kind of like looking at the file. Yeah, it would look not dissimilar to this, but would be a lot more readable. Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking that's a major UI paradigm shift that I do want to do here. Anyway, so, and I kind of have a list of things that are essential features for this before I can make a public release with it. I'm still working toward that, but it is not quite ready for that yet. So one of the big ones is I want the UI to be scalable. This is all that happens when I resize the window right now. It just does that. And I have a lot of stuff in here all the graphics for the buttons and sliders and things and the text just are not set up in a way to scale at anything other than exactly 1x here at this size. I compiled this program for a Mac for the first time in a while and discovered that the resolution I've been working with here doesn't actually fit on my laptop screen. So scalable UI is definitely essential. Basically, it ended up looking like kind of like that. I could get about that much of it on, but that was all. So yeah, UI has to be able to scale down and ideally up too. Does I didn't implement the full screen shortcut, but yeah, that just looks real bad. It'd be nice to have this full screen, take up all the space here. So a scalable UI, among other things, would mean a different font. Ideally one with SDFs on the inside, and just because that would scale perfectly and be fairly simple to implement. I showed some stuff with that in Foresight Fight a while back. Where am I going with this? So, but basically, like, the requirements for releasing this interconnect with the... Right, I haven't talked about my tile editor at all yet. I talked about that last time where I was going to start that project. It started, so in addition to all the stuff I did here, I did manage to spend some time on a certain other project. Let's switch over to that now. It's still very early and super rough, but I'll show you what I have at this point. The scope of this program keeps increasing. I want it to do all sorts of things, including font editing. So I want this program to be working so that I can edit the font that I'll use in AudioLab so the UI can be scalable so I can release that. So this tool is ties into that process. Anyway, so here's another mess of UI I just sort of threw together randomly. It does the same thing. It doesn't scale or anything. It just does that. But starting with some basic concepts here. You wouldn't know it just looking at it, but this is a pixel editor here. I can draw as if with a pencil tool. I can hold Shift and click to make straight lines. I can change my colors. I can... This is the Explorer palette or Apple IIgs palette, these 16 colors I just happen to choose. If I hold the Alt key, I can do a flood fill. Those are all the tools that are implemented now. There's line drawing and flood fill. Anyway, so as I edit this, it's made a big mess in those tiles because this is a tile map view here. Let's select a different tile and put something in that just so you can tell. Select a different tile and, fill this with blue, let's say. Here's another tile. This one has some brown scribbles in it. And I can do this. This is basically like another pixel view here and has most of the same features. Whoops, right. I don't choose a color there. I choose a tile. Yeah, so works largely the same way. And something that I'm in the middle of doing is having a mode where I can draw on this in pixel mode. Like imagine zooming in on this a little bit more and just editing this tile as though I were here in this view, just right there in that view, and being able to drag a line from here to here, maybe have a different mode where as I do that I could have it create new tiles in the tile set here, which is really tiny on this screen, and like automatically create new tiles when I scribble over them. Or instead have it like, if I draw a line from here to here, then it would just do it in every one of these tiles, for example. I think both of those modes are interesting. Anyway, yeah, so got a real basic graphics editor here and can put down tiles with this editor. Boy, I have made such a mess here. This is kind of gross. I feel like I want to... Okay. Let's... I don't have an erase... Here, I have a way to erase. Check it out. That's how I erase. Relaunch. Here, let's draw some actual tiles here, just so we can see what that might look like. How about that? There we go. Tiles. And then here in this one, let's put like some grass. How about that? All right, that's not, not the best grass I've ever drawn, but it's something. And then here in this tile, let's make this a, give it a grass background, make it a little rock or something. Sure, that's a nice little rock. Why not? All right. Yeah, so anyway, I have a tool that can technically put together tiles here. This was as far as I was able to get with the time that I spent on this. I spent a lot more time on AudioLab. That was where my efforts were going, because that was where I had the momentum and wanted to keep on carrying that momentum forward. And anyway, but this happened around the boundaries of that, and I at least have an idea of what I'm doing with it. But yeah, this is going to be my general purpose graphic editor and tile assembler and stuff. So yeah, the trajectory this program is going. Not much to see yet, but it's a start. So I'll see you again sometime soon with more AudioLab progress and maybe more tile editor progress and maybe some other stuff too.